Welcome to the Spring Grove Music Department Zoom meeting, Keeping Music Ed Safe at Spring Grove Public Schools. My name is Bethany Engen and I teach choir and elementary music.
And I'm Willie Leafblad and I teach band.
We're going to present to you and then at the end we'll do some Q&A, and feel free to speak into your microphone or you can send your question through the chat. So slide please.
Here we go.
This is a statement about how important music is, and I know because you're here and you're listening that you think music is important too. It's imperative that all students have access to equitable delivery of arts education that includes dance, media art, music, theater, and visual arts that supports their educational, social, and emotional well-being, taught by certified professional arts educators in partnership with community arts and providers. And we know that the community of Spring Grove thinks music and arts are very important, and we're so proud of offering all of our K-12 students music every day.
So a lot of the information we're gonna be talking about today comes from a collaboration of many arts organizations, but primarily the two kind of headliners of that coalition are the National Federation of State High School Associations, NFHS, and the College Band Directors National Association, CBDNA. Back in March, when COVID hit, these groups and their heads got together and eventually got a coalition of over 120 arts organizations from around the country to commission a study at the University of Colorado Boulder, a $250,000 study that it's like, just like it says here, is specifically studying the aerosol rates produced by wind instruments, vocalists, actors, among others, and how quickly those aerosol rates accumulate in space. And that study is ongoing, and they've been, unlike you would normally see in a scientific study where they would compile all the findings and release it at the end, they've been releasing them sort of in stages. So the first preliminary findings were released in July, and then we had the second round of findings released, I think it was just last month in August, and there should be another one coming in December, I believe. And so there's a link on the bottom to where you can read more about that study and actually see the PDFs of their findings. But just so you know, a lot of the information we're talking about today is coming from that study, because that's essentially right now the only literature there is on aerosols in the performing arts. And so this is taken directly from that study. Here's some of the things they were doing, and just so we can kind of all get our heads wrapped around how performing arts activities emit aerosols. It's kind of something I, even as a band director, had never really thought of before. And so this is one example. They're testing all of wind instruments, singing, even like recorders, which we have here at Spring Grove. They're testing all of those. And this is just, this is called a Solarian Test. Is that right, Bethany? Where
Yes.
it's kind of a smoke and mirrors kind of thing, where they put it in front of a mirror, and then by using light in a certain way, they can see. If I play this video here, you'll see. So that was just plain, you can see where it kind of ripples. That's aerosols coming out of the instrument. And then they go on to show a little bit more what we're going to be talking about later in the presentation, how we can mitigate some of those things.
Yeah, and in the chat right now, I'm putting the link to the full study if you're interested in looking at that. Yes, same study on July 13th, and this is the singing portion. Oh, can you play it, Willie, so we can see?
Yep.
425,600 minutes. How do you measure a year? In daylights, in sunsets, in midnights, in cups of coffee.
Thank you. And then if you forward just to where she's wearing a mask, so we can see those aerosols coming where it's cloudy. Thank you. So you notice that the air escapes from the top of the mask while singing, and powerful singers might consider wearing a mask and face shield when singing. I know that I'm a powerful singer and I will have air escaping off the top, so I'm gonna wear a mask and a face shield while I'm singing. If I'm just talking, I'm going to take the face shield off.
So now we'll talk a little bit about, they've sort of compiled the 5 principal takeaways from these studies for music educators, students, and administrators. And they are as follows. You can see them here: masks. So everybody, just like in general, when we're about and in the school, and of course there's a mandate in Minnesota right now, students should be wearing masks. Instruments should be masked. And so with things like belt covers, and on the next slide, I'll explain a little bit more what that is. And the materials do matter. So when we're looking for masks and belt covers for our instruments and music students, we're looking at what they're made of too, and how that affects. And
distance is the second principal takeaway. We want kids a minimum of 6 by 6 feet away. We're actually thinking 8 feet is really nice for musicians as they move, and we are lucky to have the space to do 8 feet apart, a minimum of that. And it applies to indoors and outdoors. And trombones, they need more room for their slide in the front, so a minimum of 9 by 6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. Bethany, you mentioned about indoors and outdoors. We're lucky to both be able to have outdoor classrooms this fall for our music students. So at least at the beginning of the year, we'll be able to have almost all of our music classes outdoors. Time is another consideration. It's important, or the recommendation now is that even if you do have masks on your students and instruments, 30 minutes is about the maximum amount of time that they're recommending. This study is recommending you be doing performing arts activities. So then once you finish that, you need to clear the room for a minimum of 1 air change. So the filtration system that we have in the school, getting that to be where all the air in the room is swapped out. And on average for a lot of buildings, that's about 20 minutes. If you're outdoors, they're recommending a 5-minute air exchange. So 5 minutes between your rehearsals to just allow the aerosols to dissipate, which of course they do much faster outdoors.
Yep, and speaking of airflow, that outdoors is best. We do have safe locations to teach in, space out in inclement weather though. We have a plan for that. And when we're inside, we want at least 1 air cycle, air change before the next rehearsal, like Willie mentioned, with HEPA filtration, and we're just looking at the ACH rates.
Yep. And the last, of course, is hygiene. Of course, always washing hands as much as we can. I know that the school bathrooms are going to be cleaned 3 times a day, but also we're going to be talking about just specific to the band activity, like our water keys or spit valves. Kids are going to need to have their own, preferably cotton absorbent little cloth or material, something like that, and then storing that in the Ziploc bag in their cases and washing that at regular intervals. So we're not expelling our the water from our instruments onto the ground, or when it comes out of the spit valve kind of forcefully, it can kind of dissipate into the air. So having a place to put that. Also, there's going to be no shared instruments at Spring Grove this year. So in the past, maybe we'd have students sharing larger instruments like a bari sax or a tuba or something. We've been able to ensure with our student numbers and instrument inventory that we won't need to share any instruments this fall. So just things like that. And of course, just cleaning your instruments regularly, swapping out, things like that. Bethany, did you want to add anything to hygiene?
Yep, so what's changing on the choir side is kids will get their folders and they will bring them to rehearsal and take them too. They can keep those in their backpacks. And we're not using the folio cabinets this year. So no folders are stored in the choir room. Instead, they go with the singer.
Yeah, and that just since you mentioned that, that's the same for the band too. We got rid of those folder slots as well. So next slide. Here's a little bit more of what I was talking about with our band masks and instrument bell covers. So essentially most of our band students are going to be looking like this guy right here in the middle. He's just, I don't know him. He's just a poor sucker that had his picture on the internet. So he's in our slideshow now. And you can see how they sort of apply to all instruments here on the right. These masks here we got some from West Music. You can see they reference the cbDNA aerosol study down here. So they're manufacturers are making those in collaboration with the findings from those studies coming out. And I just put this here because we were able to get our Spring Grove Lion embroidered on, or not embroidered, but printed on some of our instrument covers for an added school pride. So those are how we're going to be masking band students.
Face covering for singers. You'll see that they have the disposable mask and it's 3 layers. They actually recommend that those have the best fit, although cloth masks are okay too. We just want to make sure that they're tight around the ears. And then in the middle, it's called a singer's mask. And this is available if students want them. We will get them one. I will have to say that they're busy and back ordered, but they'll be here in October. The singer's mask doesn't provide any more safety, but it does keep the mask from being on your mouth. And when people inhale quickly, sometimes they don't like that fabric on their mouth. So it provides comfort, but not a layer of safety. And then we talked about those really strong singers. They should be wearing a mask and a shield to catch the draft of the droplets.
Bethany, I wondered if I might jump back to the slide because I forgot to mention, and maybe some of you are already thinking, these band masks won't, for percussionists can just wear regular masks, right? Because they don't need a mouthpiece to play. But for these type of masks won't really work for flute players. And so I just wanted to take a second to demonstrate how, if you can see my screen, how that's going to work for flute players. I think it might be best if I stop sharing for a moment. So you can see, I think if I'm speaking, you should be able to see me. You can see that, which with the regular cloth mask or those surgical masks, you can actually put the flute inside and it works just the same. So that's the plan for flute players. I just wanted to say that because the other masks that I was talking about would not work for flute players. So now we've got that covered. So jumping along to risk mitigation and band, we've talked about some of these already. Outdoor rehearsals for these things on these numbered items on the side are sort of 4 or 5 pillars, how we're addressing those principal takeaways from the aerosol study in Colorado. Ventilation. Our rehearsals are going to be outdoors as long as feasibly possible. For band, the Minnesota Band Directors Association recommends that instruments not be played outside if the temperature is below 40 degrees. So that's kind of our cutoff for there. Spacing. We sort of talked about this, 6 by 6 feet outside, more if possible, and 6 by 9 feet for trombone, so that they have room to have their slide all the way extended if need be. Masks, students are going to be wearing masks. Instruments will be masked with bell covers, and I already demonstrated the flute. Whoops, sorry about that. Hygiene, we talked about that as well. I did want to mention that percussionists are going to be bringing their own sticks and at least 1 pair of mallets. For sort of more specialty or auxiliary instruments, like maybe a bass drum or a gong, we plan to have sanitizing wipes and maybe some gloves in the back for percussionists to be sanitizing those shared those shared beaters, mallets and beaters. Time, we talked about that. Outdoor rehearsals will be at least 5 minutes apart, and indoor rehearsals 1 air cycle apart.
And mitigating risk in choir is following very similar as the band. Choir will be outside north of the practice gym. The rain location is the practice gym. The students will be a minimum of 6 feet. We have room for 8 feet apart for singers. Students need to wear their mask when singing. They need to wear their mask in the practice gym the whole time. Their only time they can take their mask off is if they're spaced out outside and they're not singing. Then it's okay to take their mask off. Choir folders individually assigned, like we talked about. They'll take those to and fro rehearsal. And time, 5 minutes apart for classes, or 1 air cycle inside approximately 20 minutes.
Bethany, I was just thinking, would you want to post that or more info link in the chat?
Yes, I will. I will put that in the chat.
You can't click on it when it's from a shared screen. We also have, if there's students that want to take music but aren't comfortable physically or maybe emotionally to be singing or playing in one of our ensembles, we have developed a music inquiry option for those students, and there's just some examples of what they could be doing for that kind of project. Now, there is also, we know for sure at the junior high, at all levels, I believe, there is going to be an option to if these look interesting to your student, they will be able to be in an ensemble and explore one of these projects as well. That is going to be an option. So we're excited about that because it gives students who aren't comfortable being in band or choir for maybe safety reasons, another avenue to take music, but also our music program has a little bit more depth now with some of these more exploratory options. So that's the music inquiry project.
Yeah, that's really exciting to offer another aspect where kids can explore and work at their own pace. It also works well. We know 7-12 kids will be, they don't have to be in the building on Wednesday, so this is something they can do there too, and really develop a musical identity. So very exciting. Let's talk about elementary music, what that will look like. Same model as choir and band, but just shortened. So music classes will be outside. The rain location is not the gym, it's the students' homeroom. And that's because we want the kids to kind of stay in their own wing of the building. Students will be a minimum of 6 feet apart. They'll wear their masks when singing. They can take their masks when they're outside spaced off and not singing. Now, we're not singing for a few weeks. We are going to send out some surveys, and we want every family to feel comfortable with singing before we do that. I think that's fine. There's so much to teach about music. Singing can come later, and that's awesome, and kids will have a great education even if we're not singing right away. Hygiene. K1, 2, they actually won't be touching instruments at all. They'll be doing a lot of dance. They'll be listening to recorded music. Grades 2, 3, they will have instruments like ukulele and percussion, but they'll be individually assigned and they'll be sanitized or disinfected after each use. And outdoor classes 5 minutes apart. Indoor classes, they'll actually be in their homeroom, but if for some reason they'd be somewhere else, we want that to air to circulate 20 minutes before bringing in a different group. If you have questions, please send us an email, call, or text us. And for more information, visit the music page. At this time, we'll open it up for questions. I think maybe, Willie, should we stop recording?
Yeah, we can do that.
And if you have any questions, you can either send them in the chat or you can unmute and